Now here in the UK, it has been pretty cold recently, hovering around 0 degrees. So winter is truly here and we've had to adapt how we're riding, where we're riding and what we're wearing when we do it. So today I'm heading off into the sunshine for a ride outside and I thought I'd show you how I dress for winter cycling. Now I'm pretty lucky in that I have a whole wardrobe of cycling clothes, definitely one of the perks of doing this full time. But before we continue, I just wanted to debunk the myth that you have to wear cycle specific clothing to ride in winter or at any time of year for that matter. Obviously, you can ride a bike in anything. I was riding in my Doc Martin boots at the weekend and they worked out just fine. However, for the purpose of this video, we will be focusing on cycling specific clothing and what I wear when I go out. Let's start with the fundamental, and that might mean a sports bra. Now obviously we're all built differently, so this won't apply to all, but I like to choose something that is lightweight and non-cotton so that it won't get very cold if you get a bit sweaty. For some reason I find that you do get a bit sweaty around this area. Maybe it's because you've got an extra layer as opposed to the rest of your body, but what I prefer to avoid is something with quite a thick band around the bottom. This is basically elastic down here and it gets cold and sweaty, whereas if you've got something that doesn't have these thick kind of elastic bits, for some reason it seems to feel less cold when it gets wet. Okay, now base layers. Obviously they come in all different fabrics and different weights, long sleeve, short sleeve, I mean there's millions out there. What you want to really avoid is cotton ones because cotton feels cold against the skin when it gets wet, when you perspire, and also it doesn't dry very quickly. Something like merino wool actually still keeps you warm even when it's damp, so that can be quite a good choice. Now, along with checking what the weather's going to be like on your ride, when you're trying to decide what base layer to wear, you really want to have a think about the terrain and what kind of ride you're going to be doing, like how many efforts you might be doing, because you don't want to overdress. If you wear something very, very thick, then you're going to sweat on the climbs or on any efforts, and then you're going to get very cold the rest of the time or on any descents. So for a ride like that, you might choose something that's a little lighter weight to try and avoid sweating and then getting colder. Something like this is very thick, very nice and warm, and might be better for something that's a little flatter, something where you're going a bit steadier, something a bit longer. Okay, now tights. Obviously you're going to want to wear them rather than shorts. It's freezing, and what you want to look for is something that's got a nice brushed interior because it traps the heat and keeps you warm. Something like this or something like that. Some brands have started doing bib tights with a degree of waterproofness, and that sounds like quite a good idea, but I've yet to test those, so not going to go ahead and recommend them just yet. Okay, now socks. It's not rocket science, they're just socks. So my biggest tip would be to avoid really thick socks unless you've sized up in your winter shoes, which I have in the past. You don't want to wear something that's thick, that's going to make your shoe tight because it makes your foot so much colder, believe me. Double socking, also a no-no. It really constricts your feet and they will be colder. Just try a few different options to see what works for you. My favourites are actually these. They're from a petrol station. They're so fluffy inside. Like with the base layer, avoid anything cotton and also think carefully if you're going to wear waterproof socks. I've got a couple of options here. I find that they don't keep my feet that warm. They keep them dry, which is nice, but they always have a kind of clammy feeling. I probably should have tied it up a bit before showing you inside my cupboard. But anyway, on to the next thing, which is a buff or some kind of neck gaiter. Absolute must. It stops wind funneling down your neck and stops me getting sore shoulders, because if it gets cold around here then they can start to really, really ache. So I like something tubular. If you wear a bandana instead, I mean, it might look cool if you're riding gravel, but it's not actually warm around the back of your neck because that's where you tie the knot. Something tubular is much better, and you can also pull it up over your face or you can wear it on your head. Next layer is a long sleeve cycling jersey, something like this, with a kind of thermo roubaix fabric would be really nice. And on top of this, a jacket. Now, I would avoid wearing something that's an out and out rain jacket unless you have to because it's actually raining, because often rain jackets aren't as breathable as other ones, so you can find that you get very, very clammy. I've made that mistake before. I thought, well, my rain jacket will keep me warmer because I always get hot when I'm wearing it, but it's the same as wearing too thick a base layer. You end up getting colder. My other tip would be to always start your ride a bit cold, because you will warm up, you absolutely will. And also maybe skip the cafe stop and instead take some snacks with you, or have the cafe stop at the end. If I know that I am going to be stopping at a coffee shop or something when I'm riding with friends and it is deep winter, then I do have a couple of tricks. Well, they're not really tricks, but I don't always wear a sports bra because I don't really need to. And as I mentioned earlier, I find that they can get quite sweaty and therefore cold. So I skip the sports bra and I take a spare base layer with me. It's only small, and when I'm at the cafe, I can quickly switch into a dry base layer, and that feels brilliant and makes the world of difference. And onto footwear. Now, obviously what you wear on your feet depends on what kind of bike you're riding and also on your budget. The most straightforward and simplest thing to do is to take your normal shoes and add a pair of overshoes. Now, these will keep the water out to a degree, definitely take the wind chill off, and keep your feet a bit warmer. You could also fill in some of the vents, either on the sole or around the top of your shoe. In the past, I've actually put blue tack in these vents, or some people do gaffer tape the vents up. Might not look pretty, but if you're going to be wearing an overshoe anyway, well, it doesn't really matter. And anyway, warm feet is better than looking pretty. The other option is something winter specific, such as these boots. These have got a neoprene cuff, they come up a bit higher, so they're going to keep some of the water out and keep your feet a little bit drier. Another option, if you get really cold feet, and I do, is to use the disposable foot heater pads. You can actually put those in your shoe. It's not terribly comfortable if you put it underneath because of all the downwards pressure when you're pedaling, but you can lay one on top of your foot and it does really help. Now, sure, you don't need me to explain to you about gloves, but I do have a couple of little tips for you. One is to put a pair of merino thin liner gloves under your regular gloves for a bit of extra heat. The other is to consider using something like this, although preferably without the hole in the finger. These are just cheap mechanics or gardening gloves, and something like this inside your other gloves really helps. It really cuts out any wind chill. If you don't have particularly cold hands, then you might find that gets a bit too clammy, but it works quite well for me. My other must, might not apply to you, is a pair of glasses, because for some reason when it's really cold, it makes my eyes stream so much that I can't even see. So there we go, I'll grab my helmet and let's head outside. See you next time.